Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. Many Poles are rubbing their eyes today as they watch the testimony given by the former Minister of Finance, Jacek Rostowski. He stood in front of the Special Parliamentary Inquiry Committee investigating the Amber Gold Ponzi scheme. The confrontational former minister showed no interest in helping the committee clear up which authorities failed to fulfil their duties, allowing the Ponzi scheme to go on for years. A scam which resulted in thousands of Poles losing their life savings.
The Amber Gold scandal could be said to be the Polish equivalent of the Bernie Madoff's investment scandal that rocked the US in 2008. The authorities haven't been able to figure out who was behind it, but it's common knowledge that the culprits must have been very influential, as multiple authorities responsible for financial oversight chose not to follow procedure and look the other way when the case arrived at their desks. The Conservative government launched the Special Inquiry Committee 8 months after winning the election in October 2015. The committee is expected to publish its final report in November. The most influential witnesses have been saved for last, and today was time for the former Minister of Finance to give his testimony. However, Mr. Rostowski, as many other witnesses, claimed not to remember any specifics and not to have been involved. Instead of trying to remember important details, he chose to focus his energy on insulting members of the committee. The committee was created in order to cover up all the scandals of the current government. This is what the former Minister of Finance told journalists before the hearing even started. During the hearing, he adopted a confrontational and arrogant tone. He said that he doesn't feel guilty of any wrongdoings and claimed that even if his subordinate tax office would have acted more efficiently, it wouldn't mean that the Ponzi scheme would have been dealt with any faster.
Nie byłoby gwarancji, że afery Amber Gold udałoby się uniknąć.
Były dwie linie lotnicze.
There were 2 airlines registered in the tax office.
Skarbowym również.
Those were tiny little companies.
What impact does it have on?
That depends on what you are trying to prove.
I would have to say that your constant interruptions show a clear lack of manners.
It's because you're trying to conduct politics in here.
Były dwie linie lotnicze.
There were 2 airlines which received 299 million zloty. You can call it tiny little companies, but...
No, OLT Express had by April.
I have to repeat what I just said about your interruptions and lack of manners.
Don't worry, I'll live with it somehow.
The hearing, which lasted hours, was the last one to investigate the action, or lack thereof, by the tax office. The hearings will resume in September. That is also when we can expect to see the former Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, appear in front of the committee.
The amendment draft for the European Parliament Electoral Code was read for the second time in the Polish Parliament today. According to the project, each constituency would have a set number of at least 3 electoral mandates.
Members of Parliament from the Law and Justice Party have justified the need for change in the European Parliament electoral legislature by pointing to the lack of transparency in the current system. At present, voting in the European Parliament is conducted under proportional representation, in which votes cast for individual lists are converted into electoral mandates using the D'Hondt method. After establishing the number of mandates attributed to various committees, they are divided among the lists and then given to the candidates who manage to get the highest amount of votes.
The current system may be one of the reasons for the low turnout at these elections. We propose a simple and logical system, one that is already used in the parliamentary elections in Poland. In order to get the mandates, a party needs to cross the 5% threshold, in which case the mandates are spread according to the votes casted in a given region.
The opposition does not agree with the changes, saying that they are made in order to promote the ruling party.
The Law and Justice Party is making these changes solely because they want to get more mandates. I think that the nation will see it for the puppeteering it is.
MPs from Poland's less popular parties are afraid that the legislature may create a duopoly between the country's biggest parties, Law and Justice and Civic Platform, eliminating the smaller groups. According to the members of Law and Justice, the project's aim is to eliminate the so-called wandering vote, which according to the proportionality principle could have been awarded in a different region to where it was originally cast.
The smaller parties can make deals among themselves and merge. Historically, the problem in the Polish parliament was the abundance of small, irrelevant parties, not the presence of strong groups.
The amendment draft for the European Parliament Electoral Code was directed to further work by the Extraordinary Committee.
According to the current law, the former First President of the Supreme Court, Małgorzata Gersdorf, no longer occupies her position. However, Judge Gersdorf has a different view on the matter, as she shortened her leave to come back to work today. Many are wondering why, given the fact that a recent amendment shortened her term of office, which ended on July the 3rd.
This morning, despite the fact that she is no longer serving as the first president of the Supreme Court, Małgorzata Gersdorf showed up at work. Judge Gersdorf has never accepted the new amendment and still believes that she holds her office.
I still think that I'm holding the office. Mr. President says I'm not, but in my opinion, based on the Constitution, I'm the first president of the Supreme Court until 2020. Nothing will change that, because the Constitution is the Constitution.
Gersdorf argues that she returned early from her leave because, according to her, the Supreme Court is in a drastic state. It's all just a show for the West. I think it's her final task to provide the Western media, especially the German ones, with a hot story. All of this is supposed to give the European Commission a reason to bring Poland to the European Court of Justice and sue us for the violation of the rule of law. I assure you that it will fail, as the law clearly states that she is no longer holding her office. By order of President Duda, Małgorzata Gersdorf was recently replaced by Judge Józef Iwulski. However, not so long after, it was revealed that Iwulski was a judge during the communist era in Poland and sentenced a lot of Polish freedom fighters. Despite this shocking news, Gersdorf continues to defend Judge Iwulski.
He was simply forced to work because it was a military court. If he hadn't compiled, he would have been, at minimum, thrown in jail. He doesn't have to remember how many cases he worked on.
I don't understand why she keeps defending Judge Iwulski, maybe because she's sentimental towards her colleagues. Politicians of the ruling Law and Justice Party have no doubts that Gersdorf thinks she's above the law. It seems to me as if some judges act like politicians. They're even quite good at it, but it's simply not their job. Working at such important positions requires the ability to stay out of politics. Unfortunately, all of this became purely political. Today, in front of the Polish parliament, the opposition protested against the changes in the Supreme Court. The protesters attacked the senior speaker of the parliament, Kornel Morawiecki, shouting offensive remarks at him. Police were forced to intervene.
Uwaga! Tu obywatele! Uwaga! Uwaga! Tu obywatele!
US President Donald Trump's news conference alongside his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, where he discounted US intelligence assessments that Russia meddled with the 2016 election, was met by strong criticism from both political parties. They claim Trump is putting Russian interests ahead of the US.
Let me try and be as clear as I can to the world, to the country. We stand by our NATO allies and all those countries who are facing Russia aggression. How many times have I stood up here and told you what I think about Vladimir Putin? Vladimir Putin does not share our interests. Vladimir Putin does not share our values. We just conducted a year-long investigation into Russia's interference in our elections. They did interfere in our elections. It's really clear. There should be no doubt about that. It's also clear that it didn't have a material effect on our elections. But as a result of that, we passed tough sanctions on Russia so that we can hold them accountable. I understand the desire and the need to have good relations. That's perfectly reasonable. But Russia is a menacing government that does not share our interests, and it does not share our values. And I think that should be made very, very clear.
Coming close on the heels of President Trump's bombastic and erratic conduct towards our closest friends and allies in Brussels and Britain, yesterday's press conference actually, marks a recent low point in the history of the American presidency. We need hearings as soon as possible to assess what President Trump might have committed to President Putin in secret. President Trump's public statements were alarming enough. The Senate needs to know what happened behind closed doors. Does anyone believe he was tougher on Putin in secret? You can't assume anything but that as weak as he was in public before President Putin, he was even worse in private. Why else did he not want anyone in the room?
Yesterday in Helsinki, Finland, the President of the United States was engaged in an appalling display. What we saw at that press conference standing just several feet away from Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, was the president's decision to turn his back on the organs and agencies of the United States government.
That's all from us here at Poland Daily. Join us after the break for Poland Daily Weather, and then join me after that for Poland Daily Business.